sign the papers going around to get your.
I don't think it will work. I left the house, and then I see one of Thea's girlfriends leaving, and I'm like, I'm trying to go, we've already had it. Oh, never mind.
Who's this?
I forget what's for the thing for your star. But it's going real. I was like, you got volleyball today? You asked. I know. It's like, well, turn around. And I'm glad I see a girl.
Yeah, I'm glad you did too, because that was like Cindy, and then was supposed to babysit. She told, she has worked so many hours. She told her mind was supposed to work. She thought she was working already. So Shyla texted me, she's really worried about sleep. She was always like, here, and I'm like, oh my gosh. She had worked like 50 hours. Are you looking at restaurant? She was, and I figured out something where Shyla's like, it's no big deal. I'll just reschedule. So we rescheduled her. Maybe I'll shoot her. I'm like, I think you're doing too.
What restaurant?
She was at Lake House 13. It's a bar restaurant. Like, down in Portugal. And actually, her boss called her yesterday. We wanted her to come in and pick up another shift. We were slammed. She's like, oh, it's babysitting.
Okay, folks, it is 8:08, which means we are already running behind. Hey, I'm so glad to see everybody's faces again. I've seen some of you as you were coming in, working in your classrooms. We've been cruising around, looking at rooms, and some of them are really, like, you're done. You're ready for kids tomorrow, right? Kidding, totally kidding. We're not bringing them tomorrow. But they're looking great for those of you that have already been in. For those of you who haven't been in yet, I know you're going to come in with a fire and ready to go. Hopefully this will get you kind of jump started, ready to go. You should, if you are a core classroom teacher, you should have this lovely red backpack, and you should have an ARC core manual. If you are a SPED teacher, you have the manual, no backpack, because the kids will be doing this piece in the other classroom. So that's kind of what you should have already. The other pieces that were listed on your agenda are all in that red backpack. So you didn't really need anything other than your highlighter. We put a few extra highlighters out just in case you couldn't find yours yet, you hadn't unboxed it, or you have reboxed it because you're changing desks, which, by the way, with any luck, will be in today. So if you are getting a new desk, they should be here today. We have lots to go through. We're really excited about ARC. If you have boxes in your room, she's going to kind of explain what you need to do with the things inside. So please just know we're trying to explain everything. But you do want to make sure that what you have, all the module number is the same. And it'll say it on the little sticker on the side. It should say module whatever, 9, 10, 11, 20, 40, whatever. All of yours should be the same. Should be the same number all the way across. You may not have the same number of boxes. Okay, so there may be 5 boxes in module 10 and 6 boxes in module 12. That's okay. Because some of the books inside take up more space than the others. So do not panic that they're not the same amount of boxes. That's okay.
But
right?
your ERLA and your other one module may not match.
They may not match, but there should be all the same number.
But if you do have a random number, let them know so that we can get it to the right class.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm going to turn this over to Lisa. She is here with us today from American Reading Company, and she will give us all kinds of new things. If you did not sign the sign-up sheet or the sign-in sheet, you want to make sure you do, because that's how you're getting paid today. So yes. So please make sure that your name is on here and that I can read it. No doctor signatures today, please. All right, we're going to assume that we have everybody in. Take it away.
Thank you. I did have one quick side question. For
Sure.
special education teachers, what would be their roles specifically?
They do have some students that will be with them for reading instruction.
Okay. And they will, so this is gonna help them understand.
Yes. Awesome. Oh,
Thank you. All right, thanks for having me. Welcome. My name is Lisa. I'm really excited to be here. I have actually, this is my first time in Missouri, so I was really pumped. I always like to check off a new state in my books. I'm from the Chicagoland area. Like pretty much almost all coaches at American Reading Company. I am also a former teacher, and so this is very dear to my heart. I did use the ERLA, which is going to be in that red backpack. That's what brought me here, because I realized that it was a way for me to really get to know who my kids were as readers, and figure out how to help them. Because when I was working with students, I spent most of my time in 5th and 6th grades, but my students were reading at kindergarten through 2nd grade levels. So I wasn't a reading specialist. I did not know how to help them. They do not spend enough time helping you learn how to teach reading in any college that you go to. So I felt very lost, and this supported me with that. So of all the things today, we are going to be starting with the ERLA. It will be the most impactful part of all that you do with your students with regards to American Reading materials. So we're going to start there, and I'll go over the agenda with you, but just wanted to give you that little tidbit. So if you weren't able to do this piece, I can put it back up during our breaks. I think that you might have received the agenda. It was a link, so if you have that, I'll go over that with you. I'm gonna skip through some things here because I do want to gain back some of time, but I wanted to, rather than, I guess I think maybe people started to sit around grade levels, and we're all about colors at American Reading Company, so I can kind of gauge, like when orange to me means 5th grade, so I can start to look at those pieces, but I just wanted to kind of get an idea of who we have in the room, so I'm just going to figure out the best way to kind of get to know you without having everyone have to go through. So I'm gonna try to gauge it here. So I have, is everyone over here a 5th grade teacher? Okay, and then could you raise your hand if you do support the special education students specifically? I'm just trying to see where, okay, so we are congregating. This is like a middle school cafeteria. We're all going to our different groups here. All right, I got it. So no, this is good, so I can help, I can support you in how you are using these materials to support your students. So I will tell you, for the teachers who specifically support special education teachers, the greatest thing about this piece for you is that there is a common language with regards to reading goals for your students. So, you know, I don't know how many times I've heard, oh, they're really low, you know, and not only is that a little detrimental language to use for students, not that you're saying it in front of them, but it also doesn't help us get to what we need. So instead we can say they're reading at this level, or they're reading at this level, and we all know exactly what that means the students can do and what they probably need to be doing next. So when we think about, do you use in Missouri the IEPs? Is that the term? Okay, because I know it can be a little bit different. So when we think about those reading goals and all the paperwork that you have to do, it's really nice when you can be aligned with what's going on in the classroom with regards to literacy, if those are the goals that the students need. All right, so then we have, where are our, so I guess if I started at 5th, where is our 4th grade group? All right, in the back there, hello 4th grade, what about 3rd? Oh, you're right in front of me, I should have seen you. Okay, so the white color is for 3rd grade, that would be our 3rd grade level. What about 2nd grade, red? All right, thank you. And 1st grade would be blue, and kindergarten is yellow and green. All right, see that was I already saved us some time to kind of see where we're at. Did I miss any other roles that are present today? Classroom teacher, special ed support? Instructional coaches. Is that the back table over there? Okay, awesome. You're going to be our go-to partners the whole year. We are always super excited when there are instructional coaches, because the implementation and the success and the support of the students, it really doesn't happen without the support of instructional coaches. So we appreciate that setup. It's a much better system for schools. So one thing to note is this is not a one and done workshop and then we throw you to the wolves. This is, let me absorb the information of let me get the big picture. Let me understand how to set up my classroom. How do I start planning using the framework that I have, which would be one of the big spirals that you have. Those would be the ones colored by your grade level. How how is this organized? How can I backwards plan so that I know what the end goal is here, especially when you think about second grade and up and the end products that are involved. So how can I make the right moves to get to that end goal? And then as far as the ERLA, as far as the reading assessment, how do I start assessing my students? And let me look at the online platform where I would be putting their levels in. Now, you might not remember everything when you leave here today, and the good news is that you have professional development throughout the whole year. So today, you're going to get the information, and then you will have, I will actually be coming back, I believe it's September 7th, but don't quote me on the exact date, to be able to actually support you side by side, level students with you, and just kind of calibrate and say, okay, I remember all that stuff you said, now let's try it out together, or I tried it, and now can you re-level this student for me, or can you level some students alongside me? And then now what are the next steps? Now my students are leveled, give me the next piece of information. And then in October, you're going to have support. It's going to continue on. It's pretty much monthly, so that you can get the different pieces. And of course, this is unit 1 that we're talking about today. There are 3 more units. So to get that timely support to say, okay, now I'm ready to learn about unit 2. How's that different and how is it the same as far as the structure? So this is the learning year. You might level some students wrong. You might say, oh gosh, I would have done that lesson or that week differently, but that's education, right? That's teaching. So we always reflect on what we're doing, and the leveling assessment is something that we calibrate on all the time. It's not cookie cutter. Every kid is not going to do the same for you. They're going to throw curveballs all the time. So really analyzing what do I think the student can do, and just using that ERLA as a basis is going to really support you there. So I'm excited because I from what I've gathered talking with your leadership is that the students that you work with are very similar to the students that I worked with, in the sense that they really do need direct, explicit support and really how to move up their reading and get that support. They might not have somebody reading with them all the time at home or lots of books at home. So this is going to help them. And what we really want is to get them excited about reading and to be readers. So we all have to show up as well to say, I'm a reader and I love reading. And if we aren't those people, we might need to fake it, because our kids aren't going to be invested in it if they don't think that we are. So how do we show up and show them that excitement for reading and how important it is in the classroom? So I have the link. So if you have access to that link, I did add a Padlet down at the bottom that has some helpful resources. So when you are on the agenda, it'll be at the bottom. And I will pull it up at different points today just to reference some resources that might be helpful to you. A lot of it is in your frameworks, but you can see they're pretty big. So there were just some things that I wanted to call out. So I just wanted to make note of that for you. We are in our welcome and introductions timing, so that's good because we're not actually too far, we're not actually behind. We are going to move into looking at what the literacy block looks like, and then move into the assessment itself. So we're gonna do things a little bit, we're gonna start with a smaller piece. We're gonna start with what is the assessment and where does that live in the literacy block? And then after our lunch break, then we're going to move into the framework and the lessons, and also give you some collaborative time to start that lesson planning process. So we have, I know you can't see it on here, hopefully you have the link, but we're going to do understanding the ERLA levels. So ERLA stands for Independent Reading Level Assessment. And then after we learn the levels, then we will actually talk a little bit more deeply on, okay, so how do I find that level? And then I'm gonna show you a little bit of school taste. Any online platform is not fun, or it's, a little nerve-wracking when you first get to it, is like, oh my gosh, I have to learn this new thing. I promise you, you will be clicking through it quickly in no time. And all you need to know about School Pace today is, how do I get to it? And how do I put a student's level in it? You will not need to know how to navigate other areas, and you will get support throughout the year. And of course, as you start to poke around in School Pace, which is the online platform, you will learn more. You know, it's just like I say, anytime I ever buy a cell phone, I never read the directions. I always just figure it out, you know? Or if you ever switched from a Mac to a PC and you're like, what are the shortcuts for this? So you will, it will happen. You're just gonna need the basics of it today. But there's a resource center, you know, where there's a whole bunch of different ways that you can support students' high frequency words and reading, different types of reading logs. But those are just with time, you know, that you can start to navigate. So we most likely do not have your rosters in yet into School Pace. So my goal is show you how to get there, but then also give you a demo page so that you can click around in there and you can practice putting levels in and feel comfortable with this. So those will be our goals during School Pace time, is how do I get to mine, even though it's not gonna have my students yet, and then show me the demo so I could try it out. Okay, after lunch, we're gonna go back to the literacy block again and then say, all right, now let's look at actually grade level instruction. How is this plan, what is keeping the end in mind? What does this look like? And how do I start my lesson planning? And then giving you some time to collaboratively plan, and then we will end with any sort of takeaways, next steps, questions from there on. Notice there are no breaks. That doesn't mean that I don't think that you might need to go to the bathroom or get a delicious donut or you know, just take a screen break. I will embed breaks in, but I also know we are all adults, and when we need to step away, we will do that. Okay, I won't, because that would stop the whole presentation, but I will make sure that I try to keep that, you know, just like trying to read the room, you know, if we need a break, but I'll try to embed them as well. All right, so ready to get started. There are a couple pieces that you are going to notice in your framework. I know I said we were going to start with the ERLA. Some of the pieces that I'm going to notate right now are going to be in your framework, which is the one that's colored by your grade level, and it says Art Core on the front. Just some philosophy aspects of it. So just thinking about, you know, where we're coming from and why we are aligned as partners. So you're going to see that there are some touchdowns here, and I'm not going to read it all, but basically the goals are, of course, we always talk about wanting students to be college and career ready. And we know that when our 5th graders are reading at 1st or 2nd grade level, they're not on track to be college and career ready. So what can we do to motivate them to be engaged learners and readers, to have autonomy, and of course to get there, to start to close those reading gaps so that they can get to where they need to be by college, or, you know, for us thinking elementary, we want them there in a safe space in high school. We want to create healthy learning environments for all students. We do not want to exclude any type of students. We want to redesign the approaches and systems. So my number 5 is my big one. Redesign approaches and systems so that no student's socioeconomic status is a barrier to their success. So how can we ensure that all kids have access? And one of the biggest ways you're going to see here is all students have the right to grade level instruction. All students should be exposed to it every day. This is why we don't pull our special education students out during grade level instruction, because all students have the right to that, but then they also have a right to differentiated support. So how do we teach and expose all students to grade level reading, and then also provide them time to practice those standards at the levels they can read, and give them reading goals so that they are moving up in their levels? And that's what we're going to be able to do with these resources. So we want both. We want the grade level, and we want to meet the students where they are. The other piece, again, I'm not going to read through it, but you will see in the beginning, there are 10 big ideas that come from this framework. One of them is to write is to claim one's voice. Another is all means all. Knowledge matters. Teacher as researcher. And I just want to emphasize that one. Teacher as researcher means Teacher does not need to be encyclopedia and dictionary that transmits information to students. They memorize information, take the Buster quiz and forget it. That was Lisa in high school. But it's really, I'm gonna show you how to find the information. I'm gonna show you how to determine if this was the right resource or a credible source. And you're going to find the information. I am not going to just give the answer, I'm going to show you how to find it. So if the teacher is the lead researcher in the classroom, then students are going to learn how to be better researchers. It's almost in that way of saying, you know, teach a man to fish, and that man is gonna be able to do a lot more. I like to say, teach a woman to fish, but that's just me. I meant provide basic structure. So students need to know what's expected every day, right? What this literacy block is gonna give them a basic structure that they can, that will promote self-direction for students, but there's also provide basic structure to promote self-direction for teachers. So what you're gonna find in the framework is, it's not a script. And you might hear that a lot from us. It's not a script because we have a lot more respect for educators than that. You don't need to say, teacher will say, students will say, because then Siri can teach your classroom. We need to have a basic structure so that you don't have to be a curriculum writer, but you should have some choice and autonomy and emphasis within your classroom. So although you are going to receive read-alouds, and at second grade and above, you are gonna get core text, which means, core text means that everybody has a copy, and it will be at or above grade level that you will be reading with students. In kindergarten through second grade, you have read-alouds. Second grade has both. You start with read-alouds, and then as you move through Unit 1, you will move into some core text where everybody has a copy. So yes, you will have that. But the framework itself isn't going to say, the Watsons go to Birmingham on page 11 ask this question, because the framework can be used with any core text. And that's to say that if you ever decided that you were going to use a different grade level text, the lessons are standards aligned. So when we're focusing on main character, we're focusing on setting. We're not focusing on a specific character in this book, because that's only gonna help the student learn this text. We want the student to be able to apply that skill to any text. So not to say that there won't be some specific support on the side when you start to dig into these frameworks. So there will be enough there will be enough support, but you'll have that self-direction and that autonomy piece as well. So those are some of the backgrounds to some of these big ideas. Avid reading is fundamental. Our strength is in our diversity. Meet them where they are, and teach like our democracy depends on it. So that simply meaning we need kids to read and research and just look for credible sources. No matter where you stand on that spectrum, it's just know what you're talking about. That's all. So how do we teach kids to be more informed? And that is it for our top 10 big ideas. And again, they're in there. There's obviously more to it than what I had said, but that's really the basis for this. We are going to be talking after lunch about Unit 1, which you have in front of you, but I'm just gonna read this little excerpt of what Unit 1 is really intended for. So what you are gonna see is that Units 2, 3, and 4 are thematic units. So you might have a unit that's specifically based around weather, or it's based around bugs. You're also gonna have a genre unit, so you might have the adventure genre or the science fiction genre. If you're kindergarten, ignore everything I just said, because yours is gonna be a little different, but don't worry, I'll talk about that. But in the literacy lab, Unit 1, students will fall in love with reading through books that are too good to resist, a community of peers who will read and talk about books together, and a teacher who believes in them and helps them develop both reading passions and reading skills. So what I think that schools, and myself as a teacher, did a good job around was getting students to see that reading was important, but not really helping to hone that passion for reading and then getting kids excited. There was one, Kylene Beer, she had said, never has a student finished a book and said, oh, I can't wait to fill out a Venn diagram about this book. So it really stuck with me being 5th and 6th grade, because that's true. It's not what they're excited about. They want to talk about books. So how do we create a literacy block of time where students can get excited, recommend books, get excited about books? One that they really get excited about in 3rd grade that I was surprised, the very first time I saw that the core text for Unit 1 was Magic Treehouse, I was like, really? Isn't that old? Like, isn't that a really old series? And I am telling you, every district, every year, the kids want more. There's 2 in Unit 1 because they're shorter chapter books, and they get quite obsessed with the Magic Treehouse. So that's a tried and true one for 3rd grade. So I have been asked, like, why Magic Treehouse? I'm like, give it a chance, trust me. These kids eat it up. So that's what we're trying to find. And on that note, you may have books that you already know, that you already have in your classroom that kids love. So it's not to say you must use ARC books. You're gonna see titles in here because we work with over 200 publishers. These aren't all ARC books. We do have some ARC Press books, especially at the K1 levels, because the books didn't exist to have the reading skill needs and the fact that they needed to be engaging. Those just really didn't exist, so those were created. But when you really think about 2nd grade and above, the working with other publishers around books that kids love and can't resist is necessary. You know, we can't leave out the Diary of a Wimpy Kids and the Hunger Games and all of those texts. So you're going to see those there, and we encourage you to use your classroom libraries as well, and this library. Students are going to get a level, but we don't want them saying, I'm a red level reader, so I'm gonna go to the public library and ask them if they have any red books, because the library isn't gonna be able to do that. We're not gonna level this library with this system. We want students to start to figure out when they understand a book and when they don't. The levels are for the teacher, not the student. That's to help us determine what are their goals and how can I support them. So we don't want to ever tell students, you're at the red level and you're only going to be able to read out of this basket. So we want them to be able to choose text, but we will say your reading goals really live in this level. So I'd like you to read here majority of the time when you're with me during this time of the day, because this is where your reading goal is. And we're going to set up a process where students are going to be meeting with you on a regular basis, not every day, but on a regular basis. So they have to come with evidence of their goal, and they're not going to be able to do that if they're not reading in those levels some of the time. So we are going to give them some work, and if we can align with, especially for those special education students, if we can align with their reading goals, then they're actually getting this extra support. So both of my teachers are helping me drive my reading goal, and then I'm moving faster. I'm able to move faster because I'm getting that extra support. So so that's how we're gonna, when we think about students, we're developing their passion for reading. If we overload them with worksheets and Venn diagrams and phonics pages, and we tell them they can only read out of this box, they're not gonna have a passion for reading. So we know what we need to do, and then we finesse how we keep the kids happy and wanting to read. We ask them in the first student assessment, what do you like to read, or do you like to read? And I've had so many kids look at me like I had 3 heads, or they say, I don't like to read, which is fine. I get that a lot from kids. No, I don't like to read. Okay, you just haven't found the right book yet. And I'm gonna help you with that this year. So I'm gonna come back to this after lunch, but what I wanted to just highlight for you here is that you are going to have 4 units across the year. And what we are looking at today is going to be Unit 1. So Unit 1 is the literacy lab, and the whole purpose of the literacy lab, as I had said, is really to, what are you doing in the first 6 weeks of school? You're establishing routines and procedures. You're assessing students to figure out where their levels are at. You're getting to know them, who they are as humans, who they are as readers. And the lessons themselves will be a balance of some informational and literature standards. You are not teaching for mastery in this Unit 1. You're really starting to determine where are my students at, and they're going to be writing, again, kindergarten, ignore me for a second, they're going to be writing for different purposes, short writing for different purposes so that you can get an idea, again, of where they are. It's really almost like a little dipstick check if you were thinking about checking the oil, where are my students at? Those standards are gonna circle around in these units. So you're gonna push heavy into informational standards in Unit 2 and informational writing. And then in Unit 3, you're gonna push heavy into literature standards and narrative writing, as well as analyzing literature. And then in Unit 4, you're moving back into informational standards, but instead of informational writing, you're upping that to argument writing. So we'll talk a little bit more about it, but this is where you're gonna see more of like a science emphasis, and then in this informational, more of a social studies emphasis. Not to say it's gonna cover all those science and social studies standards, but you will see some crossover. And after this year, in the second year, after you've seen it all and you've worked through all the units, you can start to be more creative around how might I have some, cross-curricular opportunities there. But for this year, don't overwhelm yourself. It's just gonna be about getting a good feel for it. And then the reason that this is an L, sort of an elongated L shape, is because everything right here is what you're doing for that differentiated support. So when you're assessing a student's reading level, you're going to get some mini lessons that you can use in small groups or one-on-one to support students' goals. You're gonna have that online school-paced system to put their levels in and progress monitor their reading, which you're gonna get support on. And then you're going to get a whole classroom library of books that are not theme-based at all. They're going to be fiction, nonfiction, books of all different types that you're gonna keep throughout the whole year. So this will live in all 4 units, but your grade level instruction is going to change each unit. And when you do get into those thematic units, you are gonna get a second library in your classroom for that theme. So you're gonna have 2 libraries. You're gonna have the one that you're getting right now and for Unit 1 that has fiction, nonfiction, not thematic. And then you're going to have these theme-based library. So you'll want to determine in your space when that unit comes so that students know this is where I go for my wide range reading, right? When I'm picking any text that I want, and this is where I go when I'm actually doing something around that theme. So we'll talk more, and again, you're gonna get coaching support when this unit comes. So it's not about learning about it today, it's just seeing the big picture. Another thing I want to mention about this library that you're getting for this unit is that if we look at, for example, the 5th grade table, none of you will have the same exact library. So you can swap libraries throughout the year and have a whole fresh library for your classroom. So what you're gonna see when you get your baskets is you're gonna get a box like this, and you're gonna have a basket, a nice foldy one. We learned they used to not be folded. And you're gonna get a little sticker to put in it. And again, the levels are gonna help guide the students, but this will also let you know, and eventually you'll have these memorized. So you'll know, oh, this is 5th grade level. And then you're going to have texts that already have their level sticker on it. And this will be for any grade level. And then you're just gonna put the books right in there. You would think that's easy enough, but the kids do not put them back in the right spot. I mean, could it be any easier? But no, they're still gonna throw them wherever they want. So every so often you might have to have them clean them up. But this will be the text that they can use. So what you'll see here is this is orange basket 6. So there isn't gonna be another orange basket 6 in this building. So anyone that has an orange basket can swap this with another orange basket, and it will be different titles in here. I wanna say there's 25 to 30 titles in every basket. So I just wanted you to know about that piece. What I do not recommend is that you write every title down and you try to be a library and try to scan kids out. You will drive yourself nuts. I tried to do it. It took up all my planning time when I was a teacher. It wasn't worth it. You have 25 to 30 books in there. You're trying to ensure that the books get back in there. Sometimes books get lost. The only thing, if you really want to keep it organized, the only thing I would recommend, the most I would recommend that you do, is if this came from orange 6, I don't need to write orange because there's a sticker. I can just write 6 here. So if you found this anywhere in the building, you can just email who has number 6 orange. That's where this belonged. That's the only thing I would recommend.
We've already got stickers made.
Oh no! I should have been
That's why I
quiet.
was like, don't tell Becky because she's working on stickers.
Oh, for,
All of them.
okay, never mind.
So we've already
So
got.
Be quiet.
Can we
Be
just
quiet,
go in and
Lisa.
write that though, because I know it doesn't have the basket number on it, so do we just write the
Yeah,
basket number?
But we'll figure it out.
And it'll be really simple. I even had my kids, I even had my students help me write 6 on the inside cover of all of these. So it's just one little tidbit. If you have other things that someone's already doing for you, the thing is that the teachers were trying to do it, and it was so difficult. And you know, I don't know how it works here, but I only had a certain amount of copies that I was allowed to use every quarter, so I wasn't able to do that. So that's something, though, I do recommend that piece. And then, because no one's gonna wanna say, hey, do you wanna switch my orange basket? No, you have 10 books, I have 30, I do not want your basket. So just try to keep as much as you can. Our students can be able to take the books home to read. Okay, so we want that. We want them to take the books home to read. Because if I am going to improve my reading, the 30 minutes a day you give me is not enough. I should be reading at home, and if you really do hook me on reading, I want to continue this book at home. I want the mom or dad or grandma to come in and say, my face is always stuck in a book. That's fantastic. So there will be some ways that even in the ERLA, I believe, at the back, have some ways to, like, how do you get books back? You know, you might have end of quarter amnesty days, or, you know, rewards for anyone, or check your house. No judgment, just bring back any books that you find with these stickers on it and you'll get them back. So, and worst case scenario, if you lose any, the hope is that they're in a home that doesn't have any books. So that's just a little piece of it. That's the main, you know, area we will, after lunch, look back at that big picture. But we are going to jump into the literacy block, and then in a little bit, we'll take a break, because I'm trying to keep track of how long I'm holding you before I lose you. So if you were able to access that Padlet that I put at the bottom,
You do now. I just emailed all back out.
oh,
the,
I'm sorry.
uh,
Did you
agenda,
download it?
And the Padlet is at the bottom. So
Larissa's like, Lisa, can you get in line with me? Jeez, I'm so sorry.
So you'll check your email from me. There should be a new one, and it should have the Padlet at the bottom of the agenda now.
That was my bad. I put it in after I sent it.
It's attached to the end of
Really? I swear I didn't put anything bad on it. But no worries. You know what? Do you mind if I borrow this? I'm gonna be able to show it to you in here, so that is not a problem at all.
And your email? I have emailed it to Lisa. She went back to her office like double click. No, it's there, it's a new one. I know, I just.
Huh?
Double click on.
Oh.
Yeah. Click on the.
What's new?
All right. If you don't even need to do that. If you go into your framework, so the grade level one, and it should be around page 58. So when you look at the tabs, it's the introduction tab. And then it should be around page 58, you're gonna see the literacy blocks. And just know if the Padlet does work, I promise I didn't put anything X-rated, I heard it was black, there was some bad stuff on there. They can do something around it. Yeah, they're sneaky, they figure stuff out. All right, so this is the piece that I just wanted to double check. So when we think about our literacy block, our reading and writing time, this is gonna be the time that we're teaching the ELA lessons, if you will. And my question is, do we have an understanding of how much time we actually have for that? So do you have a set time, and is it the same for K-5? Is it a 90-minute, 120-minute? How much time would you say you have for literacy?
I think 3rd through 5th has an hour.
Okay.
I think I thought you guys would say, because we're different, because I'm the only reading teacher, and then Stephanie's the only writing teacher. So it'd be a 50-minute blocks. So.
So
I'll teach
one does
for
reading,
50.
one does writing? Okay, I'll definitely wanna work with you to see how we can make, cause you're both using this, it's just someone's gonna handle the reading side, someone's, so
Yeah.
do you get a common planning time?
Mhm.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Whew.
We would be similar. She teaches writing,
Okay,
but we're all teaching reading. So in third grade, we have 60 minutes of reading, and then she has a 50-minute writing block.
okay. All right, we're gonna work, so this will work, we just wanna kind of talk through, and I could be your thinking partner through, it'll absolutely work. The biggest thing is, as long as you have planning time together, even if it's weekly, so that you can plan out the week and say, you know, who's doing which part, or how do I take the writing from here? Because the way that this works is the reading and writing do go hand in hand, but there is always a culminating, for 2 and above, a culminating writing project that has more emphasis towards the end of the units. Yes.
So for those of us in special education where I will teach a block of reading and a block of writing,
Okay.
how does that work with the library and the books?
Block of reading, block of writing, so would it be in the same classroom? Would they have access to the books during the block of writing?
Yes.
Okay, then that would be fine. I have worked at a school where the only difficult part was the library was in a different classroom. So when I am
Well,
writing,
because I would be the special ed teacher, of course, that's
So like
how
me.
would go to the regular ed room.
Yeah.
Although I'm teaching the kids,
I see.
she won't be teaching
So it'd be
the
like
kids,
my
right?
library, but I would never see her reading or writing students.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So let me think through that
Cause when you level them, that's how we kinda do it, is if they're leveled,
at a
then yeah,
certain.
they would be at a certain level, they would be in the regular ed room. But those that are way over grade level would not be in the regular ed room.
Okay, so what we would determine is really when it gets to the, students will wanna bring some books probably with them. I'm thinking more around units 2 through 4. So for example, in unit 2, what grades do you support?
I'll be kindergarten, mainly third through 3.
K3, okay. So kindergarten and first grade, you're not gonna have to worry so much. Second grade, that's where we might say, let's say for example, I'm in unit 2 researching the bug unit, and I'm researching ladybugs. And then during my reading time really, I'm reading about my bug and I have a certain question that I'm answering that week. And then I'm supposed to be jotting down my notes in my graphic organizer for that week, which I can do that. I just don't know, the caveat to that is, it's not one book that I'm reading. I have one question in mind and I'm surveying through books. So the fact that it's informational could help us, because we can pool other resources. We're not stuck with that basket. We're not stuck with those books. We need information about ladybugs. And the student does not have to read at their level when they're researching. Because you skim and scan, you use pictures, so when
Well,
we get to those.
we're not, special education's not gonna get those books. Is that what
Right,
we're
so,
saying? Okay.
so I'm saying is like, if he's doing reading and writing, we might borrow some and say, we know that this student is using ladybugs, but then we're gonna pre-plan for that, and we're gonna pull some more, resources. We also don't wanna say like, we want them to have choice with the research topics, but sometimes we move them into specific topics, cause we have more.
I just wanted to see if we were
information.
gonna get books or not.
Oh, you're asking me that
Yes.
piece, that I don't, I thought you were telling me we're not getting them, so how do we do this?
I just assumed we probably
I
wouldn't,
don't
cause we
think-
never do, but.
If you're sharing this,
Yeah.
that's leading me to believe that you don't have a classroom set. But not to, and we'll help you through it. This is not the first time, and it's not to say that it's not something that we can kind of start to add on as we feel the need.
So if we have, if it's departmentalized, and so you have somebody doing the writing portion and someone else doing the conference portion, as far as leveling them, then do we all have to come back together and go, okay, this is what I got for writing, this is what we got for reading, and then we level them together?
So for the leveling piece, I think that could really be an all hands on deck. Like, we're all gonna learn how to level today and put it into the system so we can all see it. So the nice thing about School Pace is that everyone's gonna see the students, and anyone will be able to write notes about the student with regards to their reading. And that will be separate to say, this is your reading level, these are your reading goals. So you're gonna have independent reading every day and work on your
Or just throw in
goals.
class on reading?
But the classroom piece, the reading and writing, that'll be separate, a separate portion of it. What I really want to, as we kind of get through all of the information here, I want to definitely take some time during the planning to say, okay, how can these pieces work for the reading and writing? So, for example, if we're reading Dinosaurs Before Dark, Magic Treehouse, the culminating activity at the end of that is students are going to be able to write their own short story version of Magic Treehouse, or extend from the one that they read. So if you're part of, if the writing teacher is part of that reading and knows what the students were doing, whether the writing teacher was teaching it or was part of the planning and is in constant knowledge of what they're doing, then the writing teacher can start prepping them for, how do we write narratives? You know, how do we use mentor texts how do the mentor texts do this type of writing, and kind of get them set up for that, and they can start that process. It's not to say you have to wait until weeks 5 or 6. You can decide, we're gonna do little pieces as we go because you have this separate writing block. So we can be creative with that, and that's why the fact that it's not scripted out in that way, that we can say, you know what, here's the whole unit, but we're gonna do it, we're gonna piece these
And
pieces
so
together.
that was each group of kids that rotated are based on the book their class has.
Based on the book their class has, and so it's just 3rd grade though, right? That you would support, so it would be the same text, yeah.
So the whole grade would be reading Dinosaurs.
They'll read 2. They'll read Dinosaurs for Dark, and then there's one other one, but it's both Magic Treehouse, and the whole idea is, what do we know about Magic Treehouse? Like, let's start to think about what we would need to do to make it a Magic Treehouse, but then also we need to think about how do we engage our readers, you know, and how do we write stories? Yeah, so that part should make it easier because you're not trying to grapple with 15 different texts. Okay, so something to be said about the literacy blocks that I just wanted you to take note of. If it, oh. Uh-oh, it logged me out. I don't know which one I'm supposed to go to. Maybe it's on here. All right, that's okay. Pivot, pivot, pivot. Okay, so in the literacy block, obviously, so take a look at kindergarten. Yes,
Sorry,
please.
2nd grade, we're not departmentalized, we keep our kids, but our reading and writing blocks are separate.
Are they consecutive or is there a break in between?
Well, we have reading, then we have lunch, then we have recess, then we have math, then we have writing.
Okay,
But we potentially could swap maybe math and writing, so they had reading, lunch, recess, writing.
definitely your decision. I do think the closer it is, the better, only because it'll lessen you needing to say, so remember what we did this morning? Now we're gonna write about it. So,
Our reading block though is 90 minutes.
oh, it
It's
is?
intense.
Our,
I mean, it's
our night, yeah, so for 90 minutes, we have that.
So there might be some reconfiguration here. So one thing that I wanted to show you on here is if we think about your literacy block, so when we think 2nd grade and above, you're gonna have your grade level instruction. So really your lesson, the time that you are taking a particular part of the text, you're reading, let's say I'm reading part of Magic Treehouse, and the focus for this week is around setting. We're talking about the setting. And then the students might be doing some gradual release, right? I'm gonna read aloud, I'm gonna do a think aloud with you, we're gonna talk about setting, and then I'm gonna have you work with partners or in small groups to reread a part of a text or talk about a part of the Magic Treehouse text. So that's the we do, and now it's gonna be the students' turn. So when we go into reading lab, your focus during that reading lab is whatever the focus of the lesson of the day. So there should be that through line. So if we were talking about setting today when we read Magic Treehouse, then when you read your your fiction text, you are going to be thinking about the setting of your text. And when you're done reading, you're gonna talk with your partner, and that's your focus for reading that day. jot some notes down, talk about what is, we don't want them jotting notes while they're reading, we really want silent, sustained reading, but when they're done reading, we'd say, okay, you know, write down what about your setting, maybe you gave them a sentence starter or a guiding questions. Now let's talk with your partner or talk with a group, let's share out as a whole. And that's your formative assessment, your quick one to see, you know, are they getting it? Whether you're collecting something, whether you're walking around and listening. When we go into the writing piece, this is where it varies. So in that particular situation, the student was writing about their setting. They might decide to brainstorm, what is going to be the setting of my Magic Tree House book? And maybe I'm brainstorming about it during that time today. That's why you see such fluctuation here. Because depending on where you are in the unit, you're gonna spend more time in one area than the other. But when we get into the second part, so I guess what I'm saying here is that could all happen in 90 minutes, absolutely. That you might be, technically that can happen in 60, but we usually think 75 to 80 is probably the best piece. So you might say all of that would happen in our 90 minutes, but then what about that other writing piece? So you can expand in your writing, or their students need an additional reading lab, because when am I going to be reading to practice my reading goals? And when I'm in a thematic unit, I'm gonna be reading all about the theme here, but I don't wanna be reading about bugs for 9 weeks and never get to read my Diary of a Wimpy Kid or my, you know, I don't know why that's my go-to title, but I need to be selecting my own texts here, Fly Guy, whatever it might be. And I'm going to be working on my power goals. This is also a time where, as the students are silently reading, which we try to get that, we're hoping to get them up to 30 minutes. It doesn't always start there, but that's the goal, is that then that's when the teacher is pulling one-on-one or small groups to check in with students. So you said that's another 50 minutes?
I'm sorry, for what?
50 for that aftermath?
Writing is 30.
It is 30? That might work out perfectly then. If you were to say this is our read, write, discuss complex text, our reading lab, which is focused on the standard, our writing, which is focused on the focus standard for writing, and then lunch, recess, math, this is not connected to any of that. This is, you know, our focus for reading every day here is your reading goal. And then here's my conference schedule, you know when you're coming to see me, and make sure you have that ready. So they're gonna do silent reading there, and then you say, okay, you might stop at 25 minutes and say, all right, go ahead and report on your power goal if you found any evidence of your power goal today. And that might mean I'm writing about a character, that might mean I'm finding 3-syllable words that I read today. But whatever it might be, I'm bringing that to my teacher at a certain time.
Does any of the writing cover like grammar, like nouns, pronouns?
So that is, there is a focus of editing for writing, but that would be another great part where you could emphasize more, because you do have a nice amount of time for literacy that you could also expand there. And I would also say definitely for the writing teachers, it's a really nice setup that you have that, because not only are you gonna be able to extend and expand, but you're gonna be able to take more time for the writing pieces. But the big piece will be around analyzing the student work. So we don't have set lessons in there, because our stance is really on, we have ample opportunities every week to analyze certain student writing, constructive responses we call them. And so what we're noticing kids need, especially at those older grade levels, is where we're gonna emphasize, and we're gonna decide if it's most students, it'll be a whole group lesson. But if it's only a small amount of students, then we're gonna pull them and have a differentiated lesson with them, because perhaps not all 5th graders need to know what a noun is, though I was a 5th, 6th grade teacher and they still don't capitalize their eyes or put periods at the end. So I also understand that. But absolutely, so I'm glad that you mentioned that. Okay, I'm gonna move over to talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing in the beginning. So, and then because we are an hour in, I'm gonna be having us take a stretch break soon, so just so that you know. So we're gonna be doing some deliberate practice in engagement. One of the first things that you'll do in the first week of school is figuring out what is the engagement level of your students in a 1, 2, 3, 4. If you're a K1 teacher, it's gonna be a 1 or a 2. They're engaged, they're not engaged. And this will vary throughout the year and throughout the day. I mean, I think we can all say that depending on what we're reading, we're engaged or not engaged in what we're reading. And students will be the same, but overall is your kid watching. Who are my students that are engaged readers, and who are my students that I might need to work with? Yes, in K1, they might be really squirrely and loud, and there is no such thing as silent sustained reading in K1. They're going to read out loud or in lower voices to themselves. But there will be a way on school pace just for you to mark whether they're a 1, 2, 3, 4, and this will give you a nice, just quick data point on what is the engagement percentage in your classroom and who are those students. And it's helpful because when you think about parent-teacher conferences, if I am a 5th grade student reading at the 2nd grade level and I'm an engaged reader, or I'm a 5th grade student reading at the 2nd grade level and I'm a resistant reader, my growth plan is probably gonna look different to me. So that is, that is something that we want to consider. This level is what you can do, but your engagement level has another layer to it. And students should be aware of their own engagement. And then, of course, student agency. So just the fact that you're giving every student, even kindergartners, a power goal, so I call our reading goals power goals, that's gonna give students agency, that they are in the driver's seat. There is a path. And this was really exciting for my 5th and 6th grade students who, just assumed that they couldn't read or they weren't good at reading. But as soon as they started to move levels, they started to get really excited and motivated about it. And that they had a clear path. Like, I can actually say to them, once we do this and this, I'm gonna try you out for the next level. So it's not a benchmark that you're waiting every 3 months. You can move their level as soon as they've achieved the goals at that level. The only time we stop and pause is if they're going above grade level, because there is a certain set of criteria that we follow when they're reading below. But if you're going to move above 2, 3 years, why are we skipping over anything? We're gonna actually dive deep into this level. We don't want we don't want a 2nd grade student who's reading at the 6th grade level. We're like, okay, you're gonna read all these 6th grade texts. Think about all the amazing chapter books they're gonna miss out on, and how relevant are those 6th grade texts gonna be for them. So there's a lot that needs to happen in between 2nd grade and 6th grade for you to really be ready for those texts and that background knowledge. So we'll kind of talk about that. And so what I'm gonna do when we go into our, right before we go into our break, I'm just going to give you some pages to take a look at. Sorry, I'm doing this in a little bit out of order because we're gonna take out our ERLA, and I'm just gonna show you a couple pages that we're gonna take 10 minutes. And I'm gonna just show you a couple pages that you can read now or take a break and then come back to. But if you take out your ERLA, which is in your bag, it has the red spiral on it.
So if special ed doesn't have that, does that mean regular ed does the testing of all of the kids?
That's a good question. So it's not to say that you couldn't support that, because there is a way that you could technically still level them without having the full ERLA, because you'll have access to school pace. And I will show you how to do that. But if you are able to look on with anyone, or you have one to look on, awesome. Because you will know how, and sometimes you might want to reassess and check on your own students. So, and this is not part of the classroom set, so this is something really easy that along the way you might just get your hands on. So, or you say, I need to use your ERLA, but school pace itself is much more useful. It actually guides you so much more than the ERLA because it has some extra features to it that I'll show you. The reason that the ERLA is helpful in leveling, the only reason is that you give the reading and you put the reading right in front of the student so they can read. But you're on school pace while they're reading. So you could easily make copies of the readings and you won't need this. So, but you're like, but I still want it, and I get it. All right, I'm gonna hand this over to you, but I'm just going to steal the opportunity that I have this right now. So when you look here, if you go to the table of contents, which is in Roman numeral 2, you're going to see that almost the whole book is levels. And it's Read to Me, which is the pre-K level, all the way to Gold, which is 12th grade. And the reason it's so thick is because the standards are embedded in all of the levels. If you took all of the standards out and you just had the leveling system, it would be very skinny. So don't let the size deter you. There are standards in here, and they can help you even with your own grade level instruction. So if you're a 5th grade teacher, and you want to look at the standards, there's some questions under each standard that you can use to offer some high level questioning for your students. At any grade level. And I found this helpful because as a 5th grade teacher, if I was teaching, for example, main idea and details, and I'm working with the students that's in 3rd grade, I went to that standard at 3rd grade and looked at how are the questions different? What are they asking for 3rd grade versus 5th grade so that I can truly differentiate for that student. But what we're gonna look at during our break time is the very next page. It's Roman numerals 4, 5, and 6. 4 is going to show you, and I'd probably only recommend this for K2 teachers and 2nd grade only if you think that you're going to have students leveled at early kindergarten. That would be Roman numeral page 4. This is going to be our pre-K to early kindergarten, how we level those students. But everyone, if you could please look at Roman numerals 5 and 6, because Roman numeral 5 is going to be just a quick overview of K2 levels, and then the next page is a quick overview of 3rd through 12th grade levels and what they're all about. So that'll just give you a nice background, but I'm going to... So it is 9:08, so if we can come back together at 9:20. And if you just would skim and scan this at some point during that time. And then we'll come back together at 9:20. All right. Figured it was a good stretch time.
There's still donuts, there's still coffee, there's still juice. And I know that those chairs do not feel good after a long summer, so make sure you stand up and stretch, walk around.
That's what I was saying, are we gonna have to? These are all, she said page 5 and 6.
These pages shouldn't apply, that's like K2.
But, yeah, they don't, like this is from whatever they were. Kids are gonna be here till that's my issue. I think that's in general. Say it again. I said I'm gonna ask you. Yeah.
I was frustrated with the whole board. I was on this committee. Because as soon as I found out that we're not going to be a part of it. I was like, why am I doing this? No, it was good.
I think the biggest problem is reading, making sure that you understand. I'm trying to be interested in writing down our students. Fifth graders are basically just doing full amount all their
The old
title.
Take our break.
I can't be, having a